If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The fields of colors fleeting and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. The substance stand for something, you keep speaking easy, you really do believe me. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. If I could have the heart to take a knife to my skin, I'd carve your name for comfort, a feeling there of some sort. It's been a small eternity tormenting within, so hard to keep it inside. My mouth waits for the surprise, staring out my window at a bird on the line. I wish I could get cable, I wish that I was able to filter all the brainwaves that will enter my mind. If I didn't have to see it, I just don't think I need it. If I was pierced, I'd bleed it. Faster is the placement to fill your mental basement. Enough room for your demons, the catalyst with semen. I'm sorry if I frighten, but you're someone I confide in. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. I'll never ever see you again. I
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it all go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it all go down. Corrosion, corrosion to her thighs, erosion, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Happy Friday. Damn it. My little tushy cushion keeps slipping underneath my undercarriage. We'll just say that. Good morning. It's Morning Extra. I'm your host, Uncle Warren. As the thing says here, if you can't read that, I'm sorry. Reading is fundamental, as they used to say. Let's check in on everybody. Looks like Rumble is quiet right now. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't think we got anything going on Facebook either. Let's go to YouTube. Got Kameshwari Kate here. What's up, Kate? Good morning to you, dear. I hope you're doing well. Willie Bragg, Willie in the house. Willie said, I saw Willie at the, what were you at the Jim E. Brown? Was it Jim E. Brown show last night, Willie? Willie had a beverage with the devil's lettuce in it. So he got drunk and crunk at the same time. That's always a good feeling, Willie. No, I'm just kidding with you. But you see, you got a little, did you get one of those little spritzer, little seltzer things with the THC in there? That's not bad. I hope you need to tell me about your experience later. Let me know how that went. CBC voter in the house. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show, Intergalactic, another dimension. Game.film, he's here too. What's up, buddy? So Chuck and Game.film and Willie, make sure you're checking out their shows. I know Kate's got a radio show too. So we got a lot of creators in the house. Laine P's in the house too. Of course, my co-host for the Undercurrent on Wednesdays, that you can see on this channel, of course, on the Undercurrent channel, and on Facebook and Rumble and Instagram, Wednesday mornings. Got a month under our belt already. That's some crazy stuff. I can't believe it's been a month already, Lainey. We did 4 shows already. So it's good to see Lainey back doing shows like this too. We missed Lainey. I know she had some big wig job that she had to do and, couldn't be bothered with the peons. But now she's back in the dirt with the rest of us. There you go. We got the link tree in the chat for you there. If you want to check out the Undercurrent. Although if you take out the E, it looks like Thundercurrent. Thunder. Thunder. Sorry. I can't do the Brian Johnson voice. That you have to like put your man boys in in a vice to do that, and we ain't doing that. I got enough aches and pains as it is. But anyway, I got a grift here. I need to get my grift on, please. So buy the shitty coffee, else you gets the hose again. It's Desperation Blend, extra dark roast ground coffee, flowing through the sewers of a Turkish prison. This vomit-inducing blend of taint sweat, used motor oil, and microbial organism found in Venus's upper atmosphere will have you traveling through multiple hell dimensions at once. Kash Patel personally dips his tiny ball sack in each bag, making it particularly disgusting, yet highly aromatic if you're into musky, emasculated odors. Do you wish you could strap your money to 3i Atlas and send it the fuck out of here? Is life so depressing and hopeless that only a coffee from the 9th level of hell can wake you up? Well, grab a bag of Desperation. It's Desperation Blend extra dark roast ground coffee, found online and wherever Laura Loomer buys her swastikas. Remember, use promo code GRIFTER to pay an additional 20%, because otherwise it's not a grift, right? If you're not making extra money, what are you doing? Grifter. We're going to start grifter school. How to rip off people. I think there's enough people in this space doing that already. So we got news for you. We got a lot of news. Another long one. We got a John Holmes type show for you. So we might as well get to it. Guess what? No annex for you. As J.D. Vance says, Israeli Knesset vote on West Bank annexation was a stupid political stunt. Look at this. That's not going to go well with the Zionist overlords there, J.D. Vance on Thursday criticized the Israeli Knesset vote that advanced a bill to annex the Israeli-occupied West Bank while he was visiting Israel, calling it a, quote, stupid political stunt. The vote on Wednesday was a preliminary step, and the bill would need to be voted on 3 more times before it becomes law, something that's not expected to happen. The vote was supported by some parties in the ruling government's coalition, but it was opposed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, which called it a stunt, meaning it meant to harm relations with the U.S. See, everybody forgets that Bibi's pretty evil, but these other people like Smotrich and Ben Gvir, yeah, you don't want those cats in charge at all. They'll probably nuke people. Before departing Israel, Vance was asked about the vote and said he was told that it was a political stunt, that it had no practical significance and was just symbolic. If it was a political stunt, it was a very stupid political stunt, and I personally take some insult to it. Vance said that the Trump administration opposes the Israeli annexation of the West Bank. The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. I love how the United States has a policy over another country. That's pretty funny. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that, but we certainly weren't happy about it, he said. What's up, Go Start? Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. While the administration opposes annexation of the West Bank, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, Mike Huckabee, selling you those pills on those old people shows, has said the U.S. won't get in the way of the expansion of illegal Jewish settlements, which amount to de facto annexation, and U.S. military aid continues to fuel the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territory. Netanyahu and his Likud party also ultimately want to annex the West Bank, having supported a non-binding resolution earlier this year that called for the annexation of the Palestinian territory, but it's clear Netanyahu doesn't want to force the issue now to maintain good relations with the Trump administration. Yeah, Daddy don't want to ruin that money train, right? Meanwhile, Palestine hails Trump's rejection of Israeli annexation. So this is their response to that. The Palestinian Authority, or the PA, on Thursday welcomed U.S. President Donald Trump's rejection of the annexation of the occupied West Bank by Israel, calling on him to pursue efforts to achieve stability in the Middle East excuse me, in a statement, PA spokesman Nabil Abu Rudanai urged Trump to continue making significant efforts that could achieve security and stability in the Middle East. He affirmed commitment to international and Arab legitimacy, as well as the political positions announced by President Mahmoud Abbas in his recent speech to the UN General Assembly. Trump said early yesterday that his administration would not allow the annexation of the West Bank by Israel, warning that such a move would cost Tel Aviv all of its support from the United States. Does Trump have the checkbook? Well, he's not the only one that signs off on that checkbook. Israel would lose all of its support from the United States if that happened, Trump told Time magazine in an interview. On Wednesday, the Knesset approved in a preliminary reading two bills to annex the West Bank and the Ma'ale Adumim settlement block. Both drafts must still pass 3 additional readings to become law, and as we said, it's probably not going to pass. Annexing the West Bank would effectively end the possibility of implementing a 2-state solution to the Palestinian-Israel conflict as outlined in UN resolutions. In a landmark opinion last July, the ICJ declared Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory illegal and called for the evacuation of all settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. So I don't know what to make of that, right? It's like, oh, well, Trump's doing a good thing. He's not letting them annex the territory. You guys know, fuckery is always afoot. Yeah, it might be good news now, but stay frosty because there's shit like this that's about to happen here, as the U.S. considers a plan to split Gaza in two, with one zone controlled by Israel and the other by Hamas. What could possibly happen? The Wall Street Journal reported Wednesday that the U.S. and Israel are considering a plan for Gaza that would divide the Palestinian territory into two, with one area controlled by Hamas and the other controlled by the Israeli military. You notice it doesn't say the Palestinian Authority, it says Hamas. Under the plan, reconstruction could only take place in the Israeli-occupied area until Hamas disarms. No reconstruction funds will be going into areas that Hamas still controls. Jared Kushner, human voodoo doll, President Trump's son-in-law, who has been deeply involved in Gaza negotiations. He said this on Tuesday. There are considerations happening now in the area that the IDF controls, as long as that can be secured, to start the reconstruction as a new Gaza in order to give the Palestinians living in Gaza a place to go, a place to get jobs, a place to live, a place to get bombed. The Journal report said Arab mediators are alarmed by the plan because they fear dividing Gaza could lead to a zone of permanent Israeli control inside the Palestinian territory, and they're unlikely to commit to deploying troops as part of a peacekeeping force if the U.S. and Israel move forward with the idea. A long-term or permanent Israeli military occupation of parts of Gaza could also lead to the reestablishment of Jewish settlements in the Strip, something settler leaders and other officials in the Israeli government have made clear they want. There will be Jewish settlements in Gaza, Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Bez the Devil Smotrich said a few days after the ceasefire went into effect. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz said in an analysis of Kushner's vision for Gaza that the plan would amount to something like the West Bankification of Gaza, a scenario that has become dangerously more likely since the ceasefire went into effect. Gaza has already effectively been divided into two, with Israel controlling about 58% of the territory, and Hamas has reestablished control in the areas the IDF withdrew from. Israeli-backed gangs and militias are also controlling territory under IDF protection in the Israeli-occupied area. So let's split her in two. I don't think that's going to happen either, because again, you're going to need Hamas to disarm. Hamas ain't disarming. And I would assume as long as Israel exists, they're never going to disarm. I mean, would you? If somebody that's been shooting at you and killing you for decades says, you know what? Let's do a ceasefire. You can put your guns down. We're not going to hurt you anymore. No, sir. Don't like it at all. So what is the future of Gaza, right? In particular, its guardianship. So no to international guardianships. Hamas and Fatah meet in Cairo to discuss post-war Gaza. A meeting took place in Cairo between a delegation from the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas, led by Khalil al-Hayya, and representatives of the Fatah movement, headed by Hussein al-Sheikh and Majed Faraj. That's according to Al Jazeera, citing informed sources. According to the sources, the discussions focused on the Palestinian situation. Earlier talks between Sheikh and Faraj and Egyptian intelligence chief Hassan Rashad. Al Jazeera reported that Cairo is also set to host broader talks between Palestinian factions aimed at reaching a consensus on implementing the second phase of the ceasefire agreement in Gaza. Sources cited by Quds News Network said that representatives from Hamas, the Islamic Jihad Movement, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Popular Front General Command, the Democratic Front, the National Initiative, and the Democratic Reform Current Dalan's faction are expected to attend. However, according to reports, Fatah will not take part in the group meetings. Its delegation, comprising Central Committee member Hussein al-Sheikh, PLO Deputy Chairman Majed Faraj, and others, will instead hold separate discussions with Egyptian intelligence chief Rashad. A ceasefire and prisoner exchange agreement between Hamas and Israel came into effect on October 10th. It did for one of them anyway. Under the plan proposed by Trumpy, whose administration supported Israel's 2-year genocidal war on Gaza. Anonymous. What's up, Moose? What is going on? I had to split those up. The factional talks are expected to focus on forming a unified national program that rejects proposals for international guardianship over Gaza, an arrangement included in the second phase of Trump's plan. According to Al Jazeera, all factions have agreed to oppose any form of international control, expressing concern that a Palestinian party might approve it. The second phase of Trump's plan reportedly calls for the deployment of an international peacekeeping force in Gaza, the withdrawal of the Israeli army, wink, 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 the disarmament of Hamas, which ain't going to happen, and the creation of a temporary administrative body known as the Peace Council, operating under an international transitional authority, which is probably not going to happen either. Participants are also expected to discuss the planned introduction of foreign forces into Gaza. The factions will insist that such forces, if deployed, must be exclusively Arab and confined to border areas without undermining Palestinian sovereignty. As for the question of resistance weapons, faction representatives stressed that any decision on this issue must be made collectively and nationally, emphasizing that it is not up for discussion at this sensitive stage. So they're looking to the future, and they said, we don't want any Tony Blair types in here. So Hamas says it's ready for national dialogue with all those factions. The Palestinian group said, Hamas said yesterday that it's entering a national dialogue with all Palestinian factions. The announcement coincided with that meeting in Cairo between Hamas and Fatah under Egyptian mediation to discuss the second phase. In an interview with Anadolu, Hamas spokesperson Hazem Kasem, is that Casey Kasem's brother, said the movement is heading into national dialogue with open hearts and extended hands to the Palestinian Authority and other national forces, stressing that the authority is one of the Palestinian institutions that cannot be bypassed. Qasem urged that the authorities align with the prevailing national consensus in Gaza and come to the dialogue with an open mind, recognizing that this is a time for national unity and prioritizing the national interest over narrow partisan interests. Kind of like in Braveheart, it's time to unite the clans. He warned that the current period is dangerous, and not only for Hamas, but the entire Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. The please take Blair and never return him. Well, we don't have to send him there. We can send him other places, you know. The Hamas spokesperson reaffirmed the movement's full commitment to implementing the Gaza ceasefire agreement in all its details, urging mediators to pressure Israel to ensure compliance. Yeah, because Israel really does what they're told, right? He said Hamas has been holding around-the-clock discussions to complete the agreement and taking major field steps to implement what has been agreed on. According to Qasem, Hamas received clear guarantees from Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar, as well as direct assurances from the U.S. that the war has effectively ended and that implementing the agreement's terms constitutes its full conclusion. What's up, Peace Stuff? Peace Stuff. Good to see you. He added that Hamas had completed the first phase of the agreement by handing over living captives and some remains, and was working to deliver the rest, which is all buried under tons of rubble. Among other things like bombs. We'll tell you about that coming up soon. Regarding the second phase, Qasem said it requires further discussions and clarifications with mediators, explaining that this stage involves broad issues and complex matters that need detailed approaches. He stressed that Hamas's central objective is to reach a complete and lasting end to the war against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. Qasem also said the movement continues to inform mediators of Israeli violations, noting that Israel has killed 90 Palestinians since the ceasefire took effect and still keeps the Rafah crossing closed, blocking sufficient aid. He accused Israel of using humanitarian conditions as a political bargaining chip, something Israel has practiced for years under the Gaza blockade, and called for urgent action to allow aid into the Strip and prevent renewed starvation. The first phase of Trump's 20-point Gaza ceasefire deal was reached on October 10th. And there's the phase one includes the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. That's been going on. The plan also envisages the rebuilding of Gaza and the establishment of a new governing mechanism without Hamas. And we told you, I believe this week or last week, that that's probably going to cost around $67 billion to repair Gaza. And it ain't going to be a quick fix either. And there are the numbers, which are way too low. So, so I like to think that, they're going to be able to, Hamas and the Palestinians are going to be able to do things now that this is somewhat over. It's not really over. But, we've seen this show before. And, it's just going to be one of those deals where, don't disarm Hamas. Don't do it until, you're sure. And even then, still don't do it. Oh, delicious. Even though the so-called fighting has ended, which it really hasn't, what really hasn't ended is the hunger crisis there. As the World Health Organization says, the ceasefire has not ended catastrophic hunger crisis in Gaza. This is from the Libertarian Institute. We also got some antiwar.com in here. Please support them. They do good aggregation of news articles. Great source for me. I'm just passing them along to you. So, Israel equals compliance. Laugh emojis. Yeah. Casey. Oh, hey, what's up, Pittsburgh, dude? Casey Kasem supported the Palestinian cause and gave a lot of money to charities supporting the Palestinians. Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Was Casey Kasem Palestinian too? That's awesome. That makes that cursing Casey track, where he's like, he gets he's recording something, then he starts cursing because he keeps messing up. And yeah, that's fun. We'll have that on the Secret Show soon, so you can hear that if you've never heard it. So the head of the World Health Organization said the ceasefire in Gaza has not improved the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The Gaza Media Ministry reports less than 1,000 trucks of food entered Gaza during the first 11 days of the ceasefire. The situation still remains catastrophic because what's entering is not enough. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, chief of the World Health Organization, said, he continued, there is no dent in hunger because there is not enough food. Under the ceasefire, Israel agreed to allow 600 aid trucks of food each day. Data from the Gaza media office shows that just 15% of the trucks have been allowed to enter Gaza. How about that? Oh, he was Lebanese? Oh, yeah, that's right. He was Lebanese, Druze American. Hey, wasn't that Klinger from MASH? Wasn't he Lebanese, too? I think Jamie Farr, I think he was. Some of you are like, what? Who? Klinger? MASH? Jamie Farr? What is this? What is this of which you speak? We confirmed that the total number of humanitarian aid trucks that have entered the Gaza Strip since the ceasefire began has reached 986 trucks out of 6,600 trucks that were supposed to enter until Monday evening, October 20th, 2025, according to what was agreed upon in the text of the resolution. You know, the ceasefire agreement. You remember? You remember the ceasefire agreement? According to the media office. In a post on Telegram, the number of trucks entering Gaza each day is only slightly higher than the 67 that entered in the months leading up to the ceasefire. The UN Population Fund, or UNFPA, warned on Wednesday that the Gaza malnutrition crisis will have long-term effects on Palestinians. Malnutrition will have generational effects, not on the mother, but on the newborn. We'll tell you about that in a second. Likely to result in even longer-lasting care and problems throughout the life of the baby, Andrew Suburton, Deputy Executive Director of UNFPA, said. In August, 2 international agencies declared that hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were in famine. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were in famine conditions. Hundreds of people have starved to death. The famine was caused by a U.S.-backed Israeli siege on Gaza. Yeah, so... yeah, and talking about those, has Gaza's malnutrition to have generational impact on newborns? A senior UN official warned Wednesday of generational impacts in Gaza from malnutrition among pregnant women and babies, urging a surge of aid to help prevent potential lifelong health issues. The sheer extent of the devastation looked like the set of a dystopian film, said Saberton. You know who that guy he told reporters after his visit to the war-torn enclave. He said that a quarter of Gaza's population is starving. That includes 11,500 pregnant women for whom starvation is particularly catastrophic for both mother and newborn, Saberton said, whose agency leads reproductive and maternal health programs around the world. As a result, 70% of newborns are premature. 70% of newborns are premature or underweight compared to 20% before Israel's war on Gaza. Yeah. Suffer the children, right? That means something else, but that maybe it should be renamed suffering children, right? So, like I told you, it's going to cost about $67 billion to clean up Gaza. But first, they have to get the bombs that are the undetonated bombs. You know, the other day, an Israeli tank ran over an IED that they left and blamed, of course, Palestine, or blamed Hamas and killed a bunch of people. Because they don't need an excuse to murder people, that's for sure. Clearing Gaza's surface of bombs will take up to 30 years, aid group says. Clearing the surface of Gaza of unexploded ordnance will likely take between 20 to 30 years, according to an official with aid group Humanity and Inclusion, describing the enclave as a horrific, unmapped minefield. More than 53 people have been killed and hundreds injured by lethal remnants from the 2-year Israeli-Hamas war, according to a UN-led database, which is thought by aid groups to be a huge understatement. A U.S.-brokered ceasefire this month has raised hopes that the huge task of removing them from among millions of tons of rubble can begin. Okay, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. If you're looking at a full clearance, it's never happening. It's subterranean. We will find it for generations to come, said Nick Orr, an explosive ordnance disposal expert at Humanity and Inclusion, comparing the situation with British cities after World War II. Surface clearance, now that's something that's attainable within a generation, I think 20 to 30 years, he added. It's going to be a very small chipping away at a very big problem. Or who went to Gaza several times during the conflict, is part of his organization's 7-person team that will begin identifying war remnants there in essential infrastructure like hospitals and bakeries next week. For now, however, aid groups like his have not been given blanket Israeli permission to start work on removing and destroying the ordnance, nor to import the required equipment, he said. Kogat, the arm of the Israeli military overseeing Gaza aid, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. It blocks items into Gaza which it considers have dual use, both civilian and military, or said it was seeking permission to import supplies to burn away bombs rather than detonate them to ease concerns about them being repurposed by Hamas. He voiced support for a temporary force such as one foreseen in the 20-point ceasefire plan. If there's going to be any kind of future inside of Gaza, there needs to be an enabling security force that allows humanitarians to work, he said. So that's another thing that the poor people of Gaza have to deal with. Starvation and bombs on the surface and underground. And when an IDF soldier is stupid enough to blow one up themselves, of course, they say, Hamas, 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 Hamas. Their houses were destroyed, their tents were destroyed, and now graveyards seem to be the only last option in Gaza for Palestinians as far as shelter is concerned. Tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians lack shelter or a home to return to after Israel destroyed their residences across Gaza, are pitching tents in graveyards as a last resort as the humanitarian catastrophe in the enclave remains acute. Despite a fragile ceasefire deal, this graveyard wasn't meant for the living, Al Jazeera's Hind Kudari said, reporting from the southern city of Khan Yunis. But today it's home to dozens of families who have nowhere else to go. Kudari said Palestinians were camping at the site not because they want to, but because it's the last free space available. Graveyards have become shelters not out of choice, but out of desperation, she said. Rami Musla, a father of 12 who was displaced from the northern Gaza town of Beit Hanun, could not find any viable option other than the graveyard. For parents, the emotional toll is heavy. The psychological trauma of war is made worse by having to raise children among tombstones, Musla told Al Jazeera. Another resident, Saba Muhammad, said the cemeteries have now lost all their sacredness. Graveyards, once sacred spaces for the dead, are now silent witnesses to a living crisis. No water, no electricity, and no privacy, only the bare minimum to survive, she told the Al Jazeera. In Gaza, even the land for the dead is now the only refuge for the living. According to the UN, at least 1.9 million people, or about 90% of the population across the Gaza Strip, have been displaced during the war. Many have been displaced repeatedly, some 10 times or more. You've heard those stories, too, about, hey, go to the north. The Israel saying, go to the north, and they go to the north, boom, boom, boom. Go to the south, you go to the south, boom, 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 boom. They blow them up. Palestinians in southern Gaza are squeezed into overcrowded shelters as Israel issued forced orders for residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to evacuate, then bombarded many as they fled south. Yeah. The price of renting even a square meter of land to pitch a tent is prohibitive for many displaced Palestinians who lack a stable income and are dependent on scarce humanitarian assistance. UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinians, said 61 million tons of debris now cover Gaza, and entire neighborhoods have been erased as if families were searching the ruins for shelter and water. It's like after a nuke. You would think like after, you see these 80s dystopian movies about, these cities getting nuked and then people trying to survive and the rubble and, this is just nukes without the radiation. While a fragile ceasefire has been in effect since the 10th, Israel is continuing to heavily restrict humanitarian aid into Gaza, as we said. The The ICJ on Wednesday ruled Israel must allow aid into Gaza, stating it cannot use starvation as a method of warfare. Aid is mainly being channeled into the central and southern parts of the Gaza Strip through the Kerem Abu Salam, Kerem Shalom, okay, crossing. I'm going to get these names right one day, while none of the crossings in the north have been open. So living in graveyards, folks, human beings living in graveyards. This is where we're at. And I cannot believe, well, I can believe it because it's been happening, but I can't believe that we would treat people like this, right? Or we would allow people to be treated like this. He said, Israel medical aid in Israel torture prisons consists of chemo treatments on prisoners without cancer. Jesus. Can we get flotillas in? We're going to need like a fleet. We're going to need like thousands of boats if they're just going to keep fucking around like this. But, you know, it's not just Gaza. Our friends in Lebanon, too, get a little piece of the action as Israeli airstrikes kill at least 3 in series of attacks on eastern and southern Lebanon. Continuing their near-daily attacks on Lebanon, they're supposed to be under a ceasefire, too. Israel conducted airstrikes in the area around Hermel in eastern Lebanon Thursday, pounding multiple locations in the region. The Lebanese Health Ministry has confirmed 2 killed in the preliminary toll in the east. Other attacks were reported in the south involving artillery fire. As in keeping with Israel's narrative, the IDF claimed the strikes targeted several terrorist targets. Of course, it's Hezbollah, including a training camp in Bekaa Valley and a site they claimed was used in the construction of precision missiles by Hezbollah. We all know that's probably bullshit. As always, those IDF claims were not backed by any evidence offered in the statement, but were still reported as fact in the Israeli media. Yes, that's not media. It's just a propaganda machine. They're not media. The identities of the 2 slain have not been identified and were not addressed by the IDF so far. The health ministry's report is that one was killed in Shmistar, and another was killed in Yanta. A third person was reportedly killed Wednesday further south in Ain Kana, who the IDF claimed was a top Hezbollah leader, but who media reports suggested may have just been a civilian on a motorcycle. Yeah, I'm going to assume it was the latter. A later report out of the southern area of Arab Salam was a third person was killed in artillery fire there. The strikes targeted construction vehicles and also hit residential areas, because that's Hamas too, near a primary school. How about that? The slain was reportedly an 80-year-old woman killed in her home. The IDF did not comment on the attack on Arab Salim, but Arab Salim? I don't know what that word is. But Israeli sources were quoted in the media saying, there is no reason for Lebanese to try to rebuild the southern villages leveled during the war, as Israel will just keep destroying them at any rate. Wow. Reports of Israeli drones flying over Beirut are also growing, though as yet there have been no attacks there. U.S. envoy Tom Barak told Lebanese officials earlier this week that Israel had rejected the call for direct negotiations on the grounds that it would involve Israel not attacking Lebanon on a near-daily basis, and an expectation that Israel would withdraw ground troops from Lebanese soil. Both the ceasing of fire and the withdrawal were already codified in November's ceasefire, and nearly a year later, Israel is still attacking Lebanon regularly with threats of a new war, which seem increasingly meaningless inasmuch as the ceasefire already has all the trappings of a war. So yeah, and you know, Hamas in Gaza, they're looking at that too. They're like, oh, okay, you want us to disarm? They want us to disarm after all that shit they're doing in Lebanon. Ooh, oh sure, here you go. Here's my guns. They ain't gonna do that shit. Come on. These people aren't stupid. Meanwhile, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Iran-Iraq war from 1979 to 1989. That was several years ago, probably before some of you were born. Well, there's still there's still dead soldiers from both sides that they're still recovering 40 years later. Excuse me, a little Foster Brooks there. Over 52,000 Iraqi soldiers remain missing from the war with Iran. An official from the International Committee of the Red Cross said Wednesday that more than 52,000 Iraqi and around 12,000 Iranian soldiers have remained missing nearly 4 decades since the end of the 8-year-long bloody war between the two neighboring countries. The process of exchanging the remains of missing soldiers between Iraq and Iran has been ongoing per a trilateral mechanism on the basis of a memoranda of understanding signed in 2008 with International Committee of the Red Cross, facilitating to identify the missing and return their remains to their families between the two countries. Avin Yassin, media officer of the Herbal Office of the ICRC, told Rudaw, that's these people right here, Rudaw. I always want to say raw dog, but that's probably not a good idea. Former Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist Iraq and the newly formed Islamic Republic of Iran fought a devastating war more than 3 decades ago, from 1980 to 88. 79 was Russia invading Afghanistan, I think, during which about 1 million lives from each side were lost. Tehran and Baghdad in 2008 signed an agreement under the auspices of the ICRC regarding the exchange of information and handing over remains of missing persons during the war. The remains of hundreds of soldiers have been returned since then. Iran and Iraq have so far exchanged the remains of 5,324 soldiers, with the majority of them numbering 4,213 being Iraqis. Yassin added that joint committees frequently conduct field searches. Legal measures are being undertaken after the remains are found. Once they are identified, the exchange process will be done by Iraq's defense ministry under the auspices of the International Red Cross, she explained. She went on to say the latest exchange of remains took place on October 5th, which included 70 Iraqi soldiers and 40 Iranian soldiers through the Shalamik border crossing. Shalamik. The ICRS has facilitated the exchange of over 5,300 remains of the war between Iraq and Iran since 2010, the media officer said. There's still thousands of families out there who know nothing about the whereabouts of their loved ones, she said. We'll continue to support the relevant sides to give an answer to their families. And that's crazy too, right? There's some people that's just not coming home, right? They're never going to find their remains. Vietnam was one of them. Any war, you're going to find people who are MIAs or KIAs that were KIAs that were MIAs. And hell, even during 9/11, they're still trying to find the remains of people, and they haven't, because they were all in the rubble, and the rubble was taken to New Jersey, and you know that story. As we talk about the children in Gaza, right? It's always the children who are the victims. And, but it's not just in Gaza. This doesn't get as much press as Gaza, but there's a crisis going on in Sudan as well. So 14 million children in need of humanitarian assistance. A recent visit by humanitarian officials from UNICEF to Sudan reiterated the depth of the country's humanitarian crisis as the brutal war flares on. Footage released by UNICEF shows Deputy Executive Director Ted Chabin visiting Khartoum, among other areas. During his visit, Chabin was seen engaging with children, studying at a digital center. Many children were also playing in a dedicated space, as many drew or assembled toys. Sudan plunged into war after simmering tensions between the army and its rival, the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, escalated to fighting in April 2023. The violence has created one of the world's worst displacement and hunger crises, according to humanitarian organizations. In recent months, much of the fighting has been concentrated in the Darfur and Kordofan regions. Chabin warned that the situation in Sudan requires significant assistance, specifically in El Fasher, where fighting in North Darfur's embattled capital has tripled the number of displaced people this year alone. Every single Sudanese child has been impacted by violence and is psychologically affected, he said. UNICEF footage also showed children being screened for malnutrition. Over 24 million people are facing acute food insecurity, starvation, according to the World Food Program. So, yeah, it's not just Gaza. There's starving children, is particularly in those places, but around the world. Where are our priorities? Hey, Yonina, what's up? Good to see you. Can we try praying for falling space rockets? I never stop. I never stop praying. I'm not really a religious guy, but that's the one thing I pray for. Are the space rocks? Come on down. Yeah. OP government minister Ben Gvir ordered forces to fire on any Palestinian child approaching Gaza's so-called yellow line. Top government officials. Yeah, it's they're just looking for any minor excuse to murder. Because if you murder the children, then you don't have them growing up and coming back and getting revenge on you. That's the way they look at it. These are some evil people we're talking about. Meanwhile, back in Sudan, we're talking about the RSF. 5 lawyers arrested in Khartoum for defending RSF suspects, a rights group says. 5 lawyers have been arrested in Khartoum for defending individuals accused of collaborating with the paramilitary RSF. The emergency lawyers' rights group said on Tuesday, Sudanese authorities are detaining hundreds of people on suspicion of collaborating with the RSF. While some are later brought to trial, others are released during investigations, and several courts have acquitted individuals of such charges. The authorities in Khartoum are targeting lawyers because they participated in cases related to cooperation with the Rapid Support Forces. Mohammed Salah El-Din, a member of the group's executive office, told Sudan Tribune. He said that authorities interrogated the 5 lawyers last November before arresting them and filing criminal charges. In a statement, the group said lawyers were being targeted by a security cell comprised of the Army, police, and intelligence services under Articles 50 and 51 of the criminal law, which relate to undermining the constitutional order and inciting war against the state. The group said these articles are used to bring arbitrary charges against civilians. Arrests of activists, teachers, and doctors by the security cell, which has wide powers of arrest and investigation in Army-controlled areas, excuse me, have been on the rise, the statement added. The group also highlighted the case of lawyer Nasra Abkar Ibrahim, who it said was arbitrarily arrested with her sister in Omdurman. She faces what the group called fabricated charges of threatening a public official and influencing the course of justice. Fabricated charges, you say? What? That never happens. Ibrahim is scheduled to be tried at the North Omdurman Criminal Court on October 29th. The emergency lawyers group called for her legal rights to be respected and for monitoring of the trial to ensure fairness. The group demanded the immediate cancellation of all arbitrary complaints against lawyers and civilians and called for the protection of lawyers' immunity and judicial independence. So, yeah, Sudan is... Africa has always just gotten the ass end. Sorry, I got to do this real quick. Or I was gonna take. They've always gotten the ass end of colonization, having all their rare earth minerals stolen from them, all, any resources that other bigger countries wanted, and now starving children there and the civil war, and it's just a hot mess there. Much love out to the innocent people that are surviving this. Good for you. Meanwhile, in Ethiopia is in talks with China to convert billions in debt from U.S. dollars to the yuan. That's the Y-U-A-N, not a Spanish person's name. Ethiopia is in talks with China to convert some of Addis Ababa's $5.38 billion debt to Beijing. I guess that's Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa's. into lower interest rate yuan-denominated loans. The move comes amid China's broader effort to expand the use of its currency worldwide. Ethiopia's central bank governor, Eyab Tekaline, held meetings to discuss the issue with officials from the Export-Import Bank of China and the People's Bank of China during a visit to Beijing last month, according to Bloomberg. On the 20th, China is a very important partner for us now. There is a growing volume of trade investment, Tekaline said. So it really makes sense to arrange some currency swap, but in terms of converting these things as well. So absolutely, this is something in the making. We've requested officially and then working on it. Beijing's effort to encourage its debtors to switch from dollar to yuan-dominated loans is part of the bigger Chinese strategy of internationalizing the yuan, stated Lasetja Kangyago, South Africa's central bank governor, in an interview last week. The move is expected to save Ethiopia considerable amounts of interest costs, as the one-year prime rate for yuan is currently 3% compared to 7.25% for the U.S. dollar. There is savings in this. We're very, very much enthusiastic about the discussion, but it's an early stage, the Ethiopian bank governor said. Thank God for not letting me say that name again. Ethiopia's African neighbor, Kenya, is moving ahead with plans to convert its own Chinese debt to yuan. The Kenyan government said the change is expected to save the country $215 million a year in interest costs. My sense is that it's going to yield non-trivial savings, International Monetary Fund Africa Director Abebe Selassie said in an interview, to the extent that it does that over the course of the loan that has to be amortized, then it will be positive for countries like Kenya and others that may want to do it. While the vast majority of the world's debt markets are denominated in U.S. dollars, the use of the yuan has increased in recent years as countries seek some independence from the U.S.-dominated world financial system. See, that's what's happening. And that's why you got BRICS, too. That's BRICS is in the mix. Washington has used its position as holder of the world's reserve currency and accompanying financial infrastructure, such as the SWIFT payment system, to impose crippling economic sanctions on countries not complying with the U.S. foreign policy. Yeah, tariffs have consequences, and people are trying to get out of this. You see what's going on with the soybeans, right? That China was buying predominantly from the United States. Now they're buying from Argentina to avoid the tariffs. You know, you fuck around, you're going to find out. So efforts to shift away from the U.S. dollar have been led by BRICS, the 10-nation economic bloc of which Ethiopia is a member. Russia, India, China, and South Africa are prominent members. De-dollarization is moving ahead in many BRICS countries, stated Paulo Batista Noguri, executive director of the IMF, last month. In an interview with Sputnik, Noguri said a new reserve currency is needed, arguing that the United States is undermining its credibility through its behavior. That's an understatement right there. Undermining its credibility through its behavior. You think? That means the world is saying, you guys are assholes. So speaking of China, China faces profound changes, vows rapid development in a 5-year plan. China is a Trojan horse for Africa, but I get it. Yeah. And look, don't get me wrong. China, Russia, I'm not like super fan like rah, rah, cheer, cheer. Fuckery is always afoot. Don't matter which country it is. So, you can praise good things that they do, but, keep an eye out for the fuckery. China's ruling Communist Party has said it will focus on speeding up self-reliance in science and technology. They're sending rockets and rovers and stuff to the moon after a 4-day meeting that approved a draft of the party's next 5-year development plan. China faces profound and complex changes and rising uncertainty. An announcement issued on state media said Thursday. It added that it would strive for rapid economic development and consolidating national security. Oh, God, I hate that phrase. National security is probably the most evil phrase you can think of in this day and age, because all kinds of evil shit is predicated on national security. It also promised more efforts to expand domestic demand and improve people's livelihoods without providing details on how it intends to curb China's over-reliance on exports. The communique did not directly mention the trade war with Trump, but the move comes as the U.S. imposes increasingly tight controls on China's access to semiconductors and high-tech items. China's leader Xi Jinping is expected to meet Trump for talks at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, summit in South Korea next week. The president has said he is aiming to seal a fair trade deal despite the recent row over tariffs. You can say row because it's overseas. Beijing has a near monopoly in rare earth production, indispensable to global defense and semiconductor industries, and is expected to use this as leverage in the upcoming trade talks. Last week, tensions between China and the U.S. soared as Beijing announced new curbs on its rare earths exports, and Trump threatened to raise tariffs on China's goods to 100%. On Monday, Trump appeared to put recent strife behind the pair, saying the two countries needed to thrive together and announcing that he would visit China early next year after receiving an invitation from Beijing. Breaking China's dominance over rare earth supplies is likely to take at least a decade, if not longer, according to analysts and industry experts. The self-sufficiency push faces challenges, including the high capital costs, gaps in technical expertise, and environmental risks. So, yeah, and in these changing times, Trump's going to be president for another 3 years after this. Well, he's scheduled to be anyway. And that means countries around the world are starting to adjust to that. Him using these tariffs as some sort of leverage to try to get these countries to do what they want is all well and good. But then once they start getting around those tariffs, they start getting around sanctions and whatnot, the U.S. is going to be toothless on that. Israel is now paying their reservist soldiers a minimum of over $8,000 a month. Meanwhile, the average American soldier makes about $2,300 a month. U.S. funds both. Right. Yeah. So, speaking of sanctions, Moscow and Beijing slam counterproductive U.S. sanctions on Russian oil giants. Russia condemned new U.S. sanctions targeting its top oil companies, warning that Washington's action will undermine global stability rather than achieve their intended goal. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson and future ex-wife of mine, Maria Zakharova, said the punitive measures imposed on major Russian oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, will backfire and that Moscow will not compromise its national interests. She said the U.S. move is entirely counterproductive, adding that Russia has developed a strong immunity to Western restrictions and will continue to build its energy sector despite economic pressure. Zakharova also reaffirmed that Moscow remains open to dialogue, saying there are no major obstacles to peace talks, but that genuine negotiations must be rooted in mutual respect and realism. And realism, I like that. That's a... None of this fantasy bullshit. We want realism. China also denounced the sanctions, with Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Zhaikun saying Beijing opposes unilateral measures without a basis in international law or UN authorization. Speaking at a press briefing cited by the Global Times, Guo said dialogue and negotiation are the only feasible ways to resolve the Ukraine crisis rather than coercion and pressure. Beijing further criticized Europe for applying similar restrictions on Chinese companies, describing such actions as attempts to coercive diplomacy. Bullying, I think is what that's called. The sanctions announced Wednesday marked the first Ukraine-related measures taken by the U.S. President Donald Trump in his second term. They target Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two largest oil companies, over what Washington calls Moscow's refusal to end its war in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent said the companies fund the Kremlin's war machine, urging allies to join the sanctions. Oil prices rose more than $2 a barrel following the announcement. Kiev welcomed the decision, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calling it a strong message that Russia's actions will not go unanswered. More cocaine, please. Hey, Mystery, what's going on? Good to see you, sweetie. Hope you're doing well this morning or this afternoon, wherever you may be. Ooh, 11:11 in the Central Time Zone. Make a wish. He described the new sanctions as tremendous, but added that he hoped they would not need to remain in place for long, saying he preferred lifting sanctions quickly because of the... Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the whole thing here. I was all up in that Zelensky imitation, and then I hurt myself. Earlier this week, Trump canceled a planned meeting with Russian President Putin in Hungary, claiming that talks don't go anywhere and saying the meeting would be a waste of time. He described the new sanctions as tremendous, but added that he hoped that he would not need to hoped they would not need to remain in place for long, saying he preferred lifting sanctions quickly because of the risks to the dominance of the dollar in global transactions, but claimed Russia had left him no choice. The U.S. Treasury said the measures also extend to dozens of subsidiaries like Rosneft and Lukoil, blocking their assets and barring U.S. citizens from dealing with them. The EU on the same day approved the new sanctions package, including a phased ban on Russian liquefied natural gas, God, I can't talk today, LNG, imports and fresh restrictions on Moscow's shadow fleet of tankers. Shadow fleet. They're made of shadows. So China scales back purchases of Russian oil following these sanctions. Chinese state oil firms have suspended purchases of seaborne Russian oil after the U.S. imposed new sanctions on Russian energy giants, Rosneft and Lukoil. Chinese national oil companies PetroChina, Sinopec, CNOOC, and Zhenhua Oil will refrain from dealing in seaborne Russian oil, at least in the short term, due to concern over sanctions, the news agency wrote during citing the trade sources. So the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, imposed new sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil on Wednesday, claiming Russia lacked a serious commitment to a peace process to end the war in Ukraine. The Treasury said its actions would increase pressure on Russia's energy sector and degrade the Kremlin's ability to fight its war against Ukraine. Oh, thank you, dear. I feel somewhat marvelous. But I'm working. I'm building up to marvelous. I'm okay, but I'm building up to marvelous. China imports roughly 1.4 million barrels of Russian oil per day. Beijing's state oil firms import between 250 and 500,000 barrels per day, while the remainder is purchased by small refiners known as teapots. I'm a little teapot, big and stout. Fill me up with oil and get sanctions. That doesn't rhyme. Traders speaking with Reuters indicated that the small refiners will likely continue purchases of Russian oil after a brief pause to assess the impact of the sanctions. Omen Angel, what's up? Yes, keep spreading the facts. We trying. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. China also buys approximately 900,000 barrels per day of Russian oil by pipeline. These purchases will likely not be affected by sanctions, the traders added. The other major purchaser of Russian oil, India, is also expected to drastically reduce its crude imports from Moscow as a result of the U.S. sanctions. A sharp drop in oil demand from Russia's two largest customers will put a strain on Moscow's oil reserves and force the world's top importers to seek alternative supplies and push up global prices, Reuters wrote. India and China will instead look to suppliers in West Asia, Africa, and Latin America to make up for the lost supply from Russia, traders said. So no America for you. America's like, you can buy our oil. Nah, we're good. World oil prices jumped after the U.S. Treasury announced the new sanctions, like we said, $2 a barrel. The sanctions froze all Rosneft and Lukoil assets in the U.S., while U.S. companies and individuals will be barred from doing business with them. Washington is also threatening secondary sanctions on foreign financial institutions that do business with the two Russian energy firms, including banks that facilitate sales of Russian oil in China, India, and Turkey. In a related development, Several oil suppliers from West Asia and Canada have suspended oil sales to China's Yulong Petrochemical after the UK imposed sanctions on the refiner. Reuters reported that although the UK imposed sanctions on Yulong to curb Moscow's oil revenues used to fund the Ukraine war, the move is likely to push it to buy more Russian crude. Yulong Petrochemical has a capacity of 400,000 barrels per day and is one of the country's largest single Russian oil customers. Who wants that Russian oil? Texas tea. I guess it'd be Moscow tea, right? Is that how it is? So NATO countries feud over Ukrainian attacks on Peter Shijarto. I do a joke about it's not delivery, it's de jour, but I can't do that with this. On the tweeters that he hopes Ukraine destroys the Druzhba oil pipeline, which carries Russian crude to Hungary through Ukraine. I hope your brave compatriot Major Magyar finally succeeds in knocking out the oil pipeline that feeds Putin's war machine, and you get your oil via Croatia, Sikorsky wrote, to which he replied, sick burn. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban responded to the Polish foreign minister's remarks, calling them complete madness. He said, war psychosis has captured the mind of the Polish government. They want to throw away the 1,000-year-old Hungarian-Polish friendship. Yeah, sure, why not? It's World War III. Everybody, come on, everybody, let's go to war. Ukraine has launched multiple attacks on the Druzhba pipelines, resulting in some supply disruptions. Budapest has condemned Kiev for attacking the pipeline. Orban said disabling the pipeline would cause financial hardship for Hungarians. Orban has been one of the only NATO leaders to oppose escalating the proxy war in Ukraine. On Wednesday, the Hungarian leader addressed a peace march in Budapest. The day of the Budapest Peace March has come. Today we send a message to the whole world. Hungary says no to war. We will not die for Ukraine. We will not send our children to the slaughterhouse of at Brussels' command, he wrote on the Twitters. There he is right there. Last week, Trump said he planned to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest. However, White House officials later said that was all bullshit. Sujarto said Hungary was still trying to revive the meeting. Bad news for the pro-war lobby and good news for those who want peace, he wrote on Wednesday. After my meeting with Secretary of State Mark Rubio, it's clear that the U.S. has not given up on holding the Budapest Peace Summit. Preparations are ongoing, and the only question is timing, not intention. The Hungarian foreign minister blamed the pro-war political elite for attempting to scuttle the summit and prolong the war in Ukraine. From the moment the peace summit in Budapest was announced, it was obvious that many would do everything possible to stop it from happening, he wrote. The pro-war political elite and their media always behave this way before events that could prove decisive between war and peace, Sujarto added. It will be no different this time until the summit actually takes place. Expect a wave of leaks, fake news, and statements claiming that it won't happen. Probably some AI bullshit in the mix, too. So, yeah. And we've seen this over since Russia invaded Ukraine, that these sanctions don't work. None of these sanctions work. And they, Putin's like, yes, go ahead, do your sanctions. None of it works. We still kick your ass, right? Again, I'm not a super fan of Putin, but I kind of like Putin a little bit better than Trump. At least he's smart. Meanwhile, back here at home, I don't know if you know about this. We talked about this yesterday on the Undercurrent at SNAP. Because of the supplemental nutritional program is going to run out of money by November 1st, right? So next week, a week from tomorrow, actually. So Virginia, in response, calls a state of emergency to expedite food aid during the shutdown. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has declared a state of emergency to help maintain food aid for state residents as a 3-week-long United States government shutdown threatens to halt federal benefits. Youngkin said on Thursday that the move would allow him to use emergency funds to assist Virginians in the absence of federal appropriations to fund the food benefits administered by states. More than 850,000 Virginia residents would feel the impact if Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP food benefits run out next week, he said. The emergency declaration by Virginia, the first state to issue one, comes after other states warned food aid recipients this week that their benefits may not be distributed next month if the shutdown continues. That's what they said here in Illinois, too. More than 41 million Americans receive monthly SNAP benefits, also known as food stamps, and nearly 7 million more people get aid from the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, also known as WIC. California Governor Gavin Newsom on Wednesday said he would deploy the state's National Guard and fast-track $80 million to support food banks while the federal shutdown drags on. The government shutdown is now in its 23rd day, well, actually 24th day today, the second longest in history, with no end in sight. Both Republicans and Democrats blame the other side for the shutdown. A key sticking point is policy demands related to health care, particularly the Affordable Care Act, as we'll talk about here. Democrats have refused to consider any budget legislation that does not include extending COVID-era health insurance subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, warning of a spike in prices for consumers should they expire as planned by the end of the year. Well, instead of doing this ACA, if they would have done Medicaid or Medicare for all, we wouldn't have this problem, and people would be getting fed. They have also called to reverse Republican-led cuts to Medicaid, a government health insurance program for low-income people that were put into place when Trumpy signed into law a vast tax cuts and spending bill in July, the big, beautiful bill. You remember that shit. Democrats want an extension of those subsidies before they agreed to vote to end the shutdown, while Republicans have said that issues can be dealt with once the government reopens. And you're like, well, why can't I thought the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate. They do. But in this case, they have to have 60 votes in the Senate. And there aren't 60 Republicans in the Senate. So they have to have the Democrats sign off on this. And so like I said, they're trying to save this rotten system, this ACA, the Affordable Care Act. And I've talked to some people who say who they benefit from it, but it's very, very few people have been able to take some advantage of it. So, yeah, exactly. People's premiums will skyrocket. They already have, and now they're going to skyrocket even more. So, meanwhile, down in Tennessee. Remember that song from like the late 90s, I think, or mid 90s? United Auto Workers, Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga are calling a strike. Love to see it. We need more. Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who unionized with the UAW last year, announced Thursday that they will vote next week to authorize a strike after over 13 months of fruitless contract negotiations with the auto giant. The strike authorization vote planned for the 28th and the 29th of this month comes after months of unfair labor practices committed by the company, including bad faith negotiations, unlawful intimidation, and the unilateral cutting of jobs at Volkswagen's only U.S. assembly plant, UAW said in a statement. The union also highlighted Volkswagen's $20.6 billion in profits last year. How about that? Yeah, that's a lot of good. That's a lot of smackers. Company spokesperson Michael Lauder said Monday that Volkswagen made it clear to the union that our last, best, and final offer is indeed final. We cannot in good faith prolong negotiations by continuing to bargain when we have already put our best offer on the table. It's time for the UAW to give Volkswagen employees a voice and let them decide for themselves by voting on our final offer. That voice hurt. I'm voting yes. I'm voting yes because this is the time to show Volkswagen we are serious about receiving industry standard treatment. Job security is essential. They could pay us $100 an hour, but it means nothing if they close the plant 2 weeks into the agreement, said James Robinson. I'm hoping this process shows the company we are serious about getting a fair contract. We'll show them their offer wasn't enough. Show them we're willing to stand up to get what we deserve. Employee Taylor Fugit said that I'm voting yes to get Volkswagen to come back to the table. The majority of the people I know don't want Volkswagen's final offer. This Volkswagen, wouldn't it be final solution? Since it's a German. All right, I'm sorry. They want to keep negotiating and are willing to do what it takes to make that happen. I was trying to make a Nazi joke. Sorry. We need affordable health care and a strong job security statement that leaves no gray area, Fugit said. We also deserve equal standards. Southern auto workers shouldn't be treated differently. Chattanooga is a nice place. If you've never been there, beautiful. Up in the Smoky Mountains. I believe Chattanooga is the one that has the community internet that's just lightning fast. I could be wrong. Or maybe somewhere else. But they're somewhere in Tennessee. One elected Republican held a press conference on Wednesday in a bid to bully the union into holding a vote on the company's latest offer. Local 3 News reported that Hamilton County Commissioner Jeff Eversole said Volkswagen put forward a final union contract offer over a month ago that offers significant gains for Chattanooga workers, including a 20% wage increase, a cost of living allowance, a $4,000 ratification bonus, lower health care costs, and much, much more. Many employees have been reaching out to the UAW to vote, and the UAW has refused. That sounds like some bullshit. Payday Reports' Mike Elk pointed out Thursday that the tactics used by the GOP in Chattanooga are similar to the tactics that they have used for more than a decade to sometimes successfully dissuade union votes by implying that the plant may close if the union gets too greedy. Their words, not mine, as the son of a Volkswagen auto assembly line worker. Local 3 News noted that during the press conference, dozens of members from both the UAW and the Chattanooga Area Central Labor Council, or CLC, began picketing outside of the VW plant. The outlet also spoke with some employees. One of them, Dakota Bailey, explained that originally it was going to be a 25% increase in wages. They didn't want to take that, and now they dropped it down to 20%. I wanted to try and get my money now, especially right before the holidays. It would be great to have an extra $5,500 sitting in my bank account. Yeah, but how long would it sit in your bank account? According to a Volkswagen Stories video series published by the UAW on YouTube, wages are a primary concern for workers. Other top priorities include health and safety conditions at the plant, health care, paid time off, and retirement benefits. I don't want to strike, but if it comes to it, I will, Volkswagen worker Mitchell Harris said Thursday, because I feel that all my brothers and sisters of UAW Local 42 deserve respect to provide a better life for their families and have job security for us and generations to come. Good for you. I wish a lot of companies would follow their lead. Meanwhile, first mass layoff at retail giant Target in a decade under Trump's flailing economy. That was Arrested Development. Tennessee. Not the TV show, but the band. That was one of the songs I played at the radio when I was in my first radio gig. As Americans are feeling the pain of Trump's economic policies, including U.S. leaders, not just Trump's, this kind of bled over from Biden too, including the global tariff war, Minneapolis-based Target told employees Thursday that the retail giant is pursuing its first major job cuts in a decade. The Wall Street Journal reported that Michael Fidelki, Target's incoming CEO, said in a memo to staff that the company will lay off around 1,000 of its approximately 22,000 corporate employees and cut 800 open positions, mainly in the United States. So this seems like these are upper-level jobs that are getting cut. The truth is, the complexity we've created over time has been holding us back, wrote Fidelki, who is set to take over for CEO Brian Cornell in February. Too many layers and overlapping work have slowed decisions, making it harder to bring ideas to life. A Target spokesperson told CNBC that no roles in stores or the company's supply chain will be impacted. The last time the company announced mass cuts was March 2015, when it laid off 1,700 people and declined to fill 1,400 open jobs. The Journal pointed out that Target has reported 11 consecutive quarters of falling or weak comparable sales growth, and CNBC highlighted that its shares have fallen by 65% since their all-time high in late 2021. Have you seen the prices at Target? Target used to be like the cheap spot. Now, not so much. As CNBC also detailed, compared to retail competitors, Target draws less of its overall sales from groceries and other necessities, which can make its business more vulnerable to the ups and downs of the economy and consumer sentiment. The grocery part is what's killing them. About half of Target's sales come from discretionary items, compared to only 40% at Walmart, according to estimates from Global Data Retail. As a result of that and other company-specific challenges, Target's sales trends and stock performance have diverged sharply from competitors. Shares of Walmart are up by 123% in the past 5 years, compared to Target's decline of 41% during the same time period. Target is among several that responded to Trump's return to office and executive order on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives by ditching its DEI policies. The decision caused some shoppers to boycott Target. While experts have debated the impact of the protest, it has certainly drawn attention to the company's financial state. When Target reported $23.85 billion in first quarter sales, it missed analyst expectations by nearly $500 million. Foot traffic has declined for 11 straight weeks, with Placer.ai data showing consistent year-over-year drop since the boycott began, Investopedia reported last month. Comparable sales in the second quarter fell 1.9%, with both transaction frequency and spending per visit declining. Operating income dropped by a fifth, 19.4%, to $1.3 billion in the second quarter, while earnings per share fell about 20% to $2.05. While acknowledging the DEI boycott, Bloomberg on Thursday also noted other issues, included that many customers have pointed to long wait lines, empty shelves, and less distinctive items. And of course, nobody helps you at Target. You got to hunt people down to get you to help them. I don't blame it. It's retail. Fuck it. I'd probably do the same thing, but it is what it is. Getting back on track won't be easy, Bloomberg added. Shoppers remain selective, with consumer sentiment remaining subdued on concerns around inflation and the job market. And that's the thing. People are looking for deals, too. There's too many fucking high prices, so they're looking for alternative places to get their things, all right? So, unfortunately, Walmart is one of those places that still has like the low prices on shit. So people are going to flock there. But Walmart is a shit company. They treat their employees so bad that they all have to be on food stamps. It's crazy. But that's how we keep prices low, by fucking people over. Whatever. Here in Chicago, Chicago neighborhood furious as feds lob tear gas and detain U.S. citizens. Here we go. What Trump say? We're going to get rid of the illegal criminals, and now they're going after citizens, or at least, they're going after citizens. Residents of Chicago's Little Village are angrily lashing out at federal immigration officials who rolled into their neighborhood and detained residents for a second consecutive day. The Chicago Sun-Times reports that U.S. Border Patrol agents led by Commander-at-Large Gregory Bovino stormed into Little Village on Thursday morning wearing military-style gear and gas masks. Witnesses tell the Sun-Times that the agents began to try to enter a discount mall in the neighborhood, only to realize that it had been closed. The agents' presence drew the attention of local residents who gathered around them and demanded that they leave their neighborhood. Baltazar Enriquez, president of the Little Village Community Council, said that he arrived on the scene and tried to de-escalate tensions between the agents and the community. However, he told the Sun-Times that Bovino appeared to be itching for confrontation and was the first federal officer to lob a tear gas canister into the crowd. Have a good day, Kate. Be good. Okay, cool. We'll see you, Kate. Tear gas. Peaceful people. Tear gas. I told him not to throw it because all he was going to do was rile people up, but he just smirked at me and threw it anyway, said Enriquez, who also accused Bovino of leading an orchestrated assault on the neighborhood. At the end of the operation, Border Patrol agents detained 5 people, including at least 2 people whom locals said were U.S. citizens. Illinois State Representative Edgar Gonzalez, who grew up in Little Village, expressed fury at the agents' tactics. It pisses me off to see them coming into our neighborhood and terrorizing our people, he said, while also cautioning residents against getting into violent confrontation with federal officials, which they didn't. They were just peaceful, and they got gassed. It's a normal reaction to want to resist and be angry, Gonzalez said. I'm angry too, but we need to remember not to take the bait. Again, there was no violence. They crowded around them and said, get the fuck out. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not violent. The raid in Little Village came on the same day that Human Rights Watch released a report documenting the use of excessive force by federal immigration officials on protesters, journalists, and volunteer street medics outside of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Broadview, Illinois. According to Human Rights Watch and reporting published since the Trump administration launched Operation Midway Blitz last month, several agents have repeatedly lobbed tear gas canisters and fired projectiles into crowds of peaceful protesters who are posing no threat to law enforcement officials. Unless, telling the truth is a threat, which it usually is. This is not crowd control, but a campaign of intimidation, said Belkis Will, Associate Crisis and Conflict Director at Human Rights Watch. Federal agents are using chemical irritants and firing projectiles at peaceful protesters, volunteer street medics, and journalists in broad daylight. The message is clear that dissent will be punished. Yeah, and published, because it is right there. So Trump was going to send troops to San Francisco, but then he talked to his billionaire buddies, and he said, nah, we're cool. For weeks, Trump has been threatening to deploy members of the U.S. military to San Francisco, but on Thursday, Trump made a sudden about-face, announcing he would not push forward with a surge of troops to the Democratic stronghold, at least for now. The federal government was preparing to surge San Francisco, California on Saturday, but friends of mine who live in the area called last night to ask me not to go forward with the surge, Trump wrote on his online platform, Truth Social. I try not to use the accent when he's writing stuff, but when he's being quoted as talking, I'll do the voice. You know, we have to have rules with this. The Republican leader credited NVIDIA CEO, NVIDIA, there we go, CEO Jensen Huang and Salesforce co-founder Mark Benioff, two titans of the tech industry, with helping to convince him to reverse course. Trump, all you need, if you don't want troops in your city, just have the NVIDIA CEO live there, and then you'll be fine. Trump added that he had also spoken with San Francisco's mayor, centrist Democrat Daniel Lurie, but in relaying their call, the president hinted that Thursday's decision may not be his final word on the matter. He asked very nicely that I give him a chance to see if he can turn it around, Trump said. I told him I think he's making a mistake because we can do it much faster and remove the criminals that the law does not permit him to remove. I told him it's an easier process if we do it faster, stronger, safer, more illegal. I'm sorry, that's my words. But let's see how you do. Since taking office for a second term in January, Trump has led a campaign of mass deportation that has prompted protests and concerns about human rights violations. Trump has answered those protests in part by sending National Guard troops to major cities with the stated aim of protecting federal immigration agents. That's the cover story anyway. But critics, including Governor Gavin Newsom out of California, have repeatedly warned that the military deployments not only ratchet up tensions, but run afoul of the law. Lurie, one of the heirs to the Levi Strauss Jeans Company fortune, was among those critics. On Wednesday, bracing for an impending deployment, the mayor gave a news conference surrounded by city officials, calling on the residents of San Francisco to stand united. We have already seen this federal administration deploy cruel, un-American tactics to target immigrant communities in our city. If we see these kind of tactics used again or escalated, we will protest. You're going to do a Saturday protest? You mean you're going to do a parade? He emphasized that local law enforcement would not assist federal forces in carrying out immigration raids. Yeah, we'll see. San Francisco will never stand by as our neighbors are targeted, and neither will I, Lurie said, until Trump bitch slaps him. And he's okay, all right. The state government of California, meanwhile, has warned earlier in the week that it was prepared to sue as soon as any federalized National Guard troops arrived in San Francisco. I think Portland's already sued and they lost. So it's pending because they have a current stoppage there with another lawsuit, I think. The Posse Comitatus Act, it pointed out, expressly prohibits federal troops from acting as civilian law enforcement unless called upon by the state, not the nation, the state. In a statement, Governor Newsom, who is considered a leading Democratic contender in the next presidential race, that's a low bar, compared Trump's actions to those as a wannabe tyrant. The notion that the federal government can deploy troops into our cities with no justification, grounded in reality, no oversight, no accountability, no respect for state sovereignty, is a direct assault on the rule of law, Newsom said. But despite outcry from the states like California and Illinois, Trump has pushed ahead with National Guard deployments, leading to a spate of lawsuits. California continues to be embroiled in a legal fight over Trump's decision to send troops to Los Angeles in June, when the city convulsed with protest and outrage over ICE raids at workplaces, shopping centers, and parks. Demonstrations, the majority of them peaceful, spilled into the streets. Trump nevertheless accused protesters of being violent, of course, and sent as many as 4,000 members of the California National Guard to the city over Newsom's opposition. Hey, Vera. Good to see you. Hello to you. Hope you're doing well today. While Newsom has argued that the deployment was a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, the Trump administration has cited lines from the U.S. Code as justification. The U.S. Code allows for the federalization of state National Guard troops if there is the threat of invasion or rebellion, which they have proof of neither, or if the federal government is unable to otherwise carry out its laws. And that's probably the latter is what he's going with. Though the Los Angeles protests have largely subsided, the Trump administration has proceeded to send National Guard troops to other Democratic-led jurisdictions despite pushback from local leaders. Earlier this month, for instance, Trump authorized the National Guard to go to Chicago, prompting a lawsuit from this state. And in late September, the president announced on True Social he would send troops to war-ravaged Portland, a move that was blocked by an emergency court petition. Meanwhile, Trump has touted the benefits of military deployments in Washington, D.C. and Memphis, Tennessee, arguing that the presence of the troops lowered crime in both cities. Well, yeah, if you eliminate the population too, that'll stop crime too, but that nobody wants that either. As a long-time left-wing bastion, San Francisco has long been a punching bag for Trump and other Republicans. Even on the campaign trail, the president took shots at the city's Democratic leadership, blaming it for San Francisco's destruction. But in recent weeks, Trump closed in on the city as the subject of his next crime and immigration crackdown. We're going to see, now he's on Fox News, so I can do the voice. We're going into San Francisco. San Francisco is truly one of the great cities of the world. And then 15 years ago, it went wrong. It went woke. Trump's decision to reverse course on Thursday mirrored that of one of his supporters, Mark Benioff, the billionaire software company Salesforce, like we said. And Benioff holds a weekend-long tech conference in the city every year. Was it this year? On the eve of this year's event, Benioff told the New York Times that he would welcome the National Guard in San Francisco, echoing Republican calls to clean up the city. We don't have enough cops, so if they can be cops, I'm all for it, Benioff said. Of course, because he's a fucking out-of-touch billionaire. Those comments drew instant backlash from city officials, and comedians slated to perform at his annual conference dropped out. Days later, Benioff took to social media to apologize for his bullshit. I do not believe the National Guard is needed to address safety in San Francisco, Benioff wrote, citing his conversation with locals. My earlier comment came from an abundance of caution around the event, and I sincerely apologize for the concern it caused. Benioff was among the advisors Trump cited as an influence in Thursday's decision to back down. Already, protests had erupted outside the U.S. Coast Guard facility in Alameda, where they have the nuclear vessels. Some of you get that. Part of the San Francisco Bay Area. For his part, Mayor Laurie said he would welcome continued partnerships with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the DEA, as the city struggles to reduce accidental overdoses. Maybe improve your fucking economy. That might help. But Lori added that invitation did not include military involvement. Having the military and militarized immigration enforcement in our city will hinder our recovery, he said. And we all know that this has nothing to do with illegal immigration or criminals. This all has to do with scare tactics. This has to do with getting people used to seeing troops on their streets and fear and control. And that's how that works. Finally, we got some sports ball for you, but not what you think. Did you know that there's illegal gambling in sports? What? Next thing you're gonna tell me water's wet and the sky is blue, you crackpot. Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier arrested in FBI illegal gambling inquiries. Among 30, more than 30 people have been charged yesterday, including Chauncey Billups, an NBA Hall of Fame player and head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, and Terry Rozier, a guard with the Miami Heat, in connection with two separate but related federal gambling investigations that involved the league and the mafia. The schemes, one of them focused on insider sports betting and another that rigged poker games nationwide, spanned years and involved tens of millions of dollars in illicit gains from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, and gambling. FBI Director Kash Patel said on the set of The Muppet Show, said at a news conference in Brooklyn, Rozier was one of several NBA insiders who allegedly provided non-public information about upcoming games to their criminal partners, who in turn used straw bettors to place multiple bets based on the tips, authorities said. In March 2023, for instance, Rozier told associates in advance he would leave a game early with a supposed injury, allowing them to place more than $200,000 in bets that he would not reach his expected statistical totals for the game, officials said. This is insider trading. This is the insider trading saga for the NBA, Patel said. Billups was charged in a separate case with helping to rig poker games to defraud unknowing players who were lured to the games with the promise of playing against celebrities, officials said. The defendants employed sophisticated technology to fix the games in New York, Las Vegas, Miami, and elsewhere, including fraudulent card shufflers and X-ray tables. Ooh, X-ray tables. That's what Trump's going to do in Venezuela. He's just going to kill people. That scheme also involved the Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese, and Genovese organized crime families in New York, which controlled some of the underground poker games in the city where the rigging took place, officials said. The families took a cut of the profits, used extortion and robbery to collect unpaid debts, and laundered proceeds through cryptocurrency and other means, according to prosecutors. While the arrest stemmed from two separate indictments, a handful of defendants were charged in both cases, Brooklyn U.S. Attorney Joseph Nocella said, including former Cleveland Cavaliers player and assistant coach Damon Jones. In a statement, the NBA said Rozier and Billups had been placed on leave and that the league would continue to cooperate with authorities. We take these allegations with the utmost seriousness, and the integrity of our game remains our top priority, the statement said. Not to mention, fixing games with the referees. That was a problem in the NBA too. Rozier's lawyer, James Trusty, that's an odd name. You have a lawyer's name, Trusty, more like Trust Me, said prosecutors appear to be taking the word of spectacularly incredible sources rather than relying on actual evidence of wrongdoing. Terry was cleared by the NBA, and these prosecutors revived that non-case. The arrests are likely to increase scrutiny of the relationship between online sports books and the professional sports leagues, which have reaped the benefits of a massive expansion in legalized betting, even as they have also sought to assure fans and gamblers that the integrity of the game is unaffected. I believe recently ESPN was bought by the NFL. I believe so. There's some sort of relationship with them. And ESPN has a sports book. So there you go. Yeah, and there's some shady shit going on in football, too. Some lawmakers have expressed concerns about the proliferation of bets that could be most easily manipulated by players, such as prop bets, in which bettors can wager on whether an individual player will hit or miss specific statistical totals in a given game. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver told ESPN's The Pat McAfee Show on Tuesday that he supported more federal regulation on sports betting and that the league had asked some betting partners to limit prop bets for more marginal players. Well, you go from one mob to the other, I guess, with that, if you go to the government. Several players in the Big Four North American men's leagues, the NBA, the National Football League, Major League Baseball, and the National Hockey League, have faced punishment for gambling in recent years. Former NBA player Jonte Porter was banned from the league for life and pleaded guilty in 2024 after he was accused of manipulating his performance to help associates win wagers on his play, a case that was linked to Thursday's indictment. I remember this one. Pete Rose, Major League Baseball's all-time hits leader, was barred for life from the Major League Baseball in 1989 after he was caught betting on games while managing the Reds, the Cincinnati Reds. After repeated calls from Trump, Rose was posthumously removed from MLB's permanently ineligible list earlier this year, making him eligible for the Hall of Fame. Billups, in his fifth year as Portland's head coach, he played for 7 teams during his NBA career, including the Knicks, and won a championship with the Pistons in 2004 when he was named MVP of the NBA Finals. He was expected to make an initial court appearance yesterday in Portland. Rozier is in his 11th NBA season and has averaged 13.9 points a game in his career, but I'm sure he's averaged a lot more points as far as money is concerned. His 2025-2026 salary is $26.6 million, according to the sports contract tracking website SpotTrack. He was arrested in Orlando, Florida, where the Heat played the Magic on Wednesday night and was expected to appear in court there yesterday afternoon. Sports ball cheating. The end is nigh. What is this? On that SNAP benefits thing, going to the store was especially weird yesterday. It could be because this area is 70% white, though. I went into the self-checkout line with my cat on my back. Oh, nice. Is that code, or did you have an actual cat? I'm just wondering. I don't know. I don't know lingo. I'm not down, as it were. Coming up in our propaganda watch, Ben Gvir. We told you about that charming and wonderful man in Israel. Unsurprisingly wants the death penalty for guess who? Palestinian prisoners.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things they are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I don't know why that does that twice. Ben Gvir calls for death penalty as he faces bound Palestinian prisoners. I don't know why that does it. Wait. Here we go. What the hell? Israeli Minister Itamar Ben Gvir was filmed at an Israeli prison where he called for the execution of Palestinian detainees. In a viral clip, the far-right national security minister was seen standing in front of a cell declaring that Palestinian detainees deserve a death penalty law. The video then pans to several Palestinians inside the cell, shackled and kneeling in a stress position with their backs to the camera. His remarks come as Parliament prepares to debate a series of controversial bills, including one that would impose the death penalty on those convicted of terrorism. And what is the definition of terrorism? Whatever we make it. Ben Gvir, who oversaw prison affairs, has long called for the death penalty for Palestinians and harsher prison conditions. Under his supervision, Palestinian detainees have faced increasingly severe treatment, including torture, starvation, and sexual assault, which have escalated since Israel's war on Gaza began. Fresh accounts of abuse and deaths in custody continue to emerge, with the bodies of 80 Palestinians who have died in Israeli detention since October 2023 now identified. Ben Gvir's death penalty bill was given preliminary approval last month despite opposition from Bibi. On Saturday, the far-right minister reiterated his command, calling for the death penalty law for terrorists now. Well, Israel, you're terrorists. Does that mean you get a piece of that too? Palestinian prisoners' rights groups, the Commission of Detainees and Ex-Detainees Affairs, and the Palestinian Prisoners Club described the bill to execute Palestinian prisoners as an unprecedented act of savagery. Translation, Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir storms prisons again and calls for the death. Oh, that's what this is. Okay, sorry. The group said in their statement in late September that the latest bill aims to legalize the ongoing killing of prisoners, saying its approval is no longer surprising in light of the unprecedented level of savagery practiced by the occupation system. The occupation has not been content with killing dozens of prisoners and detainees since the war of extermination began. Today it seeks to entrench the crime of execution by enacting a specific law for it, the group said in a joint statement. This law is an addition to a repressive legislative system that for decades has targeted all aspects of Palestinian life. It is another step to entrench the crime and attempt to legitimize it. Israeli authorities have previously charged several Palestinians with terrorism for their involvement in peaceful activism or humanitarian work. Multiple international rights groups have warned that Israel's use of such laws is often based on extremely vague or unsubstantiated reasons. The former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in October 2021 said Israel's counterterrorism legislation must not be applied to legitimate human rights and humanitarian work. Claiming rights before a UN or other international body is not an act of terrorism. Advocating for the rights of women in the occupied Palestinian territory is not terrorism. And providing legal aid to detained Palestinians is not terrorism, Michelle Bachelet said at the time. So they're by hook or by crook, they're going to kill Palestinians if it's up to these guys, right? Like I said, Bibi's a bad guy, but these people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, these are truly evil, evil people. So I don't know. Trumpy's like trying to put some sort of control on them, but we all know that's bullshit too. So, you're talking about the Orthodox students, kids of age that are ready for the military in Israel. Well, some of them are starting to say, you know what? I don't think so. Thanks, but no thanks. Dozens of Israelis march in Tel Aviv in support of teen refusing to serve in the IDF. So dozens of people came to rally around Daniel Schultz, an Israeli teen who will be refusing mandatory military service on Sunday in Tel Aviv on Thursday evening. That's when they were protesting, I guess. I decided to refuse to enlist because I studied in an international school with Palestinian and Israeli students, and seeing the oppression my classmates had to endure from Israel and the IDF made me realize I cannot take part in a system that does this kind of oppression, Schultz told journalists ahead of the demonstration. Schultz, 18, finished 12th grade last summer and spent her last year of high school watching Palestinian friends grapple with the effects of the war. I saw how the genocide affects Palestinian students. I saw my friends mourning their families getting killed in Gaza. I cannot take part in the system that's committed those kinds of crimes. Her friends support her decision, she says, and while her family had difficulty with it, they want to bolster her as their child. The demonstrators who banged drums and chanted, "On the home front and in the field, every soldier is a partner to murder. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," and Daniel is refusing, and I love her. Either Danielle, maybe, or I don't know. It looks like Daniel. They also chanted, "Soldier, halt, you're a terror operative." I guess this is people here. And there. Let me do this. No, it's not going to let me do it. The signs the protesters carried included inscriptions calling to refuse mandatory military service, resist a genocidal army, as well as not a murderer, not a rapist, I'm not setting foot in the army. At Habima Square in the city center, marchers unfurled a banner reading, "We will not kill or be killed in the service of the settlements." Onlookers expressed disgust at the provocative chants, sometimes shouting at the group, while other times approaching to argue with members of the marching crowd. Some onlookers were shouting, "Shame on you," and "Go to Gaza," at the marchers. 2 men passed by shouting threats at Daniel as Daniel read her refusal letter into the megaphone. Another came up to tut-tut disapprovingly at the group of demonstrators. I guess that's their version of a Karen. Another man approached to ask them about their chants. From the river to the sea means that there won't be a place for us, he said to one of the drummers. Such rallies, which are organized chiefly by the Masarvat Draft Refusal Network, are usually held outside the induction center. The organizer said that Schultz personally preferred to hold the rally in Tel Aviv, but that security concerns played a part as well. The group, as well as members of the media covering them, have come under verbal and physical attack by far-right figures, often fellow teens outside the induction center. Right? So we're talking about, these are, what is it, Gen Alpha? Are they, if you're 18, is that Gen Alpha now? You know, they're seeing their friends suffer in school. And, you know, and some of these kids, the kids that have all this information that can see through the propaganda, they haven't been steeped in this propaganda for decades like some people there, right? Hey, Game.film, happy Friday and happy weekend to you. Yes, sir. Yeah. Brent Ben-Gvir is a toddler brain psychopathic demon. Yeah, they're just fucking evil. Meanwhile, U.S. arms firm secures ban on Palestine protests in Britain. How about that? This is from Declassified UK. A U.S. arms firm has launched legal action against pro-Palestine activists in Britain. It can be revealed. Court documents show Moog. I thought Moog was, I thought they made keyboards, which makes military aircraft parts and has links to Israel's arms trade, applied for an injunction in September to prevent protests at its UK sites. The application, which was granted by the High Court, sought to stop persons unknown who, for the purpose of protest, enter, occupy, or remain on the firm's facilities across Britain. Moog returned to court earlier this month and obtained a wider injunction to cover interference with access to or egress from the land and premises. This means protesters are barred from blocking traffic around entrances and exits and face risk of arrest on public land adjacent to the company's sites. Moog requested the injunction after its factory in Wolverhampton was targeted by a direct action group named Palestinian Martyrs for Justice. In August, 4 members of that group crashed through the factory's gates and smashed its rooftop, allegedly causing over £1 million in damage. The activists accused Moog of supplying Israel's largest arms firm, Elbit Systems, with aircraft parts used to train Israeli pilots to fly F-16 and F-35 fighter jets. Declassified and The Ditch had previously exposed how Moog sent at least 10 shipments of trainer aircraft parts from Wolverhampton to an Elbit Systems site in Israel between December 2024 and July of this year. Moog did not respond to our request for comment at the time, but Declassified appears no fewer than 44 times in the company's first witness statements to the court. The company went so far as to consult with Staffordshire police about Declassified's work before our investigation had even been published, the documents show. Yeah, that was a great show the other day, you and Marcus. I meant to mention that the other day. Good stuff. Good stuff. Amnesty International said it was seriously concerned by the development of so-called persons unknown injunctions by the British courts and their impact on peaceful protest rights. Its UK Law and Human Rights Director Tom Sutherden told Declassified such injunctions are routinely issued for companies, landowners, and public authorities without any opposition. Anyone putting the counter arguments or anyone testing the evidence that the applicants seek to rely on. They bring with them hugely inflated punishments for acts of protest, as breaching them constitutes contempt of court. Potentially even worse are the financial risks faced by anyone caught up in them, who face the prospect of having to pay the legal costs of major multinational corporations, leading to people losing their homes and being made bankrupt. These injunctions are created solely to intimidate people into not protesting and urgently need to be curtailed. Moog's witness statement implies that Declassified bears responsibility for pro-Palestine direct action campaigns against arms firms in Britain. To this end, the company urged the court to issue the injunction because Declassified has published investigations into Moog's links to the Israeli arms industry. Prior to its proscription, there was a clear pattern of UK-based companies being targeted by protests from Palestine Action and other pro-Palestinian organizations, particularly after being named in Declassified, the witness statement says. It goes on to note how protests took place across several BAE systems, or BAE, sites in December 2023, weeks after Declassified had published an article alleging that BAE manufactured key parts for the F-35 fighter jets being used to support strikes in Gaza. Moog curiously admits how it is common knowledge that BAE Systems produce key parts for F-35s because it is stated on its own website. Moog also attempts to construct a timeline between a declassified report on May 8th, 2025, that's this year, and Elbit-owned Instro Precision being targeted by Palestine Action later that month. Following publication of the article, there was a Palestine Action attack aimed at Instro Precision on May 29th of this year. In this instance, Palestine Action targeted the registered London address of Discovery Park, the witness statement reads. But this war was far from the first time that the activists had protested Instro Precision, with trade unions demonstrating at the factory in October 2023 and Palestine Action targeting the company in June of last year. Moog did not approach Declassified for comment before issuing its request for an injunction, thereby offering no opportunity to respond to its claims. The company also omitted from its witness statement that Declassified not only approved the company for comment via email, but also approached the company, for comment via email, but also offered a right of reply over the phone. While Moog refused to comment, its witness statement reveals that Declassified's approaches were shared with Staffordshire Police before our article had even been published. On July 4th, a police officer from South Staffordshire visited the site, reviewed the email sent from Mr. McAvoy, and Declassified discussed safety at the Wolverhampton site in the event of a protest, document notes. In its witness statement, Moog does not attempt to refute Declassified's reporting, saying it would not be a company policy to respond to any of the specific allegations made in the article. The firm nonetheless says it does not accept the characterizations of Moog's business activities in the article, and in particular the link it attempts to make with the situation in Gaza. Yeah, itchy lip today. I don't know what the hell's going on. I washed my lip, I promise. It's unclear on what specific basis Moog is trying to distance itself from the situation in Gaza, but cargo documents show since December 2024, the company has exported M346 Lavi components to an Elbit Systems factory in Israel, as well as the country's Ministry of Defense. The M346 Lavi is a high-performance aircraft designed to train Israeli pilots to fly advanced fighter jets, including F-16s and F-35s. Trade Minister Chris Bryan attempted to justify the export of these parts to Israel last month, saying the assessment is that the training of an aircraft pilot on such equipment would take so long that they wouldn't be the people that would be engaged in fighter combat in Gaza. But this claim is refuted by the Jerusalem Post, which says cadets spend 6 months training in the Lavi Advanced Fighter Instruction Aircraft during their Operational and Advanced Operation Training course. A U.S. Air Force report also recently estimated that it could take just 4 to 6 months to train Ukrainian fighter pilots to fly F-16 fighter jets. These same aircraft have been used by Israeli forces in Gaza, including an attack on British doctors in January 2024. Yeah, so fuckery afoot as always. And of course, the U.S. is in the mix too. Palestine rights group seeks prosecution of UK citizens who fought for Israel. As we stay in the UK, a human rights group has launched an attempt to mount a private prosecution alleging British citizens unlawfully went to fight for Israel. I wonder if they're going to include those cats and the jets that were doing reconnaissance for Israel too. An application to a magistrate's court for a summons against a named individual was lodged on Monday. The highly unusual prosecution is being brought by the International Center for Justice for Palestinians, the ICJP. The human rights group intends to argue in court that named Britons joined a foreign army at war with a state, Palestine, which the UK was not fighting. It claims that waging war with a foreign force is a breach of Section 4 of the Foreign Enlistment Act from 1870. The act makes it an offense for any person to accept or agree to a commission or engagement in the military service of any foreign state at war with another foreign state that is at peace with the UK government. The ICJP has named one individual in the attempted prosecution, but has gathered evidence against more than 10 British citizens. To enhance the prospects of a successful prosecution and prevent the case from being prejudiced, the ICJP is not naming the individuals they want to be arrested. The ICJP accuses the IDF of conducting a war that is not confined to Hamas, but is against all Palestinians and Palestine itself, a state now recognized by the UK. The group says it needs to prove the defendant is a British subject, accepted a commission or engagement in the Israeli armed forces, that Israel was at war with Palestine, that Palestine is a foreign state, and finally that Palestine was at peace with the UK. Israeli domestic law does not require any person outside its territory, including Israeli citizens who are British Freudian slip, subjects, to accept or agree to accept any commission or engagement in the military. This means that British nationals who fought for the IDF did so voluntarily. The ICJP says multiple and repeated military activities directed at civilians and civilian infrastructure in the West Bank and Gaza show Israel has been at war with all Palestine. It claims Israel is illegally occupying the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, as determined by the International Court of Justice, that's the ICJ, in advisory opinions issued in July last year and again this year. So going after the UK citizens, not just fighters or military, it's anybody who fought for Israel, right? Meanwhile, the IOC bars Indonesia from hosting global events after Israeli athletes' visa ban. Oh, the International Olympic Committee, you pieces of shit. They announced, what's today, the 3rd? Wednesday? They always do this weird shit. On Wednesday, it instructed all international sports federations to avoid holding events in Indonesia following the country's refusal to grant visas to Israeli athletes competing in the World Artistic Gymnastics Championships in Jakarta. In a statement after its executive board meeting, the IOC said it had no alternative solution to Indonesia's visa decision and would suspend all cooperation with the Indonesian Olympic Committee, NOC Indonesia, regarding future Olympic-related events, including qualification tournaments, conferences, and the Youth Olympics. Gives a fuck about the Olympics anyway. Fuck them. The IOC has also frozen Indonesia's 2036 Olympic Games bid until it can guarantee that athletes from all nations will be able to compete, even the genocidal ones. The decision is a major blow to Jakarta's ambitions to expand its global sporting profile after previously hosting the 2018 Asian Games and losing its 2023 FIFA U20 World Cup bid over similar political objections. And fuck the World Cup, too. The Indonesian government confirmed that its decision to bar Israel's team from participating in the championships in Jakarta was a political stand against Israel's actions in Gaza, aligning with the country's longstanding support for Palestinian statehood. Indonesian Sports Minister Erick Thohir said Jakarta understands the consequences of its decision, emphasizing that the move aimed to preserve security, public order, and the public interest during international competitions. We adhere to the principles of maintaining security, public order, and the public interest in hosting every international event, Thohir posted on the tweeters, adding that Indonesia's stance was based on its constitutional commitment to maintaining world order. In response, the IOC said it would revise qualification rules for future events to ensure free and unobstructed access for all athletes, regardless of whether you shoot kids in the head or not. The IOC has summoned officials from Indonesia's National Olympic Committee and the International Gymnastics Federation, FIG, to meet at its headquarters in Lausanne, Switzerland, to discuss the visa ban and its fallout. The Israeli government, the Israel Gymnastics Federation denounced the move as a dangerous precedent and filed an urgent appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sports, seeking either participation rights or the event's relocation. Yet the appeal was rejected. So, the Olympics. The last one was in France, and I don't give a shit. I really don't care about people running around a track. I mean, that's all well and good. If you're into that sort of thing, you're into amateur sports, that's great. But there are other things beside the Olympics. So fuck the Olympics and all those psychos that run it. This is from Mondeweiss. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing. I think it's kind of a long article. So we're going to have these links. As always, links to these articles will be on our Substack. That's extrabulla.substack.com. Link is in the description down below, wherever you're watching this fine program. As Portland city councilors pledge to investigate city's ties to Israel. Portland. Maybe that's why the troops are headed there. A group Portland lawmakers launched a pledge to investigate the city's connection to. Oh, that's a oddly worded thing. A Portland lawmakers group launched a pledge to investigate the city's connections to Israeli weapons. The commitment calls for probes into manufacturing and transport of weapons intended for Israel, as well as other potential connections to the country. The U.S. has provided billions of dollars in military funding, weapons, and diplomatic cover to facilitate Israel's genocide of Palestinians, reads a press release on the pledge. The federal government has utterly failed to uphold their duty to prevent genocide and uphold respect for international humanitarian law, so cities across the United States are mobilizing to ensure that local tax dollars and supply chains do not support criminal warfare, and that local weapons manufacturers are held accountable for their role in genocide. What happened? The city councilors who spearheaded the effort, all of whom are members of the Democratic Socialists of America, that's the DSA, you know those people, held a virtual press conference to announce the pledge on October 17th. They were joined by Dr. Travis Mellon, a surgeon who has volunteered in Gaza, and Maxine Fuchsen, a longtime Portland resident, healthcare worker, and member of Jewish Voice for Peace. As the only immigrant on Portland City Council, the connections between what we are seeing in Gaza and what we are seeing from ICE and the federal government are crystal clear to me, Councilor Angelita Murillo told viewers. Palestinians held on administrative detention without due process is the same concept as immigrants in our communities being kidnapped off the streets. This pledge is for everyone whose hearts remain steadfast in the belief that all human beings deserve dignity and freedom. Portland City Councilor Mitch Green, a U.S. Army veteran who has been organizing against the Trump administration's deployment of troops to the city, highlighted the connections between the two issues. Portland in this moment cannot be separated from the broader historical context of the militarization that we are embedded in, he said. For my entire adult life, I witnessed the federal government pour trillions of dollars into a machine that wages war on a global scale, and now that war has come here. Since launching the campaign, 2 additional city councilors have signed on, which means that half of Portland's 12-member city council now backs the effort. The Portland pledge comes amid a fragile ceasefire in Gaza and declining support for Israel among U.S. voters. Nearly 2 years into the war in Gaza, American support for Israel has undergone a seismic reversal, with large shares of voters expressing starkly negative views about the Israeli government's management of the conflict, or AKA the genocide, declares a recent New York Times article on the shift. Disapproval of the war appears to have prompted a striking assessment by American voters of their broader sympathies in the decades-old conflict in the region. Public polling makes clear that generational change is coming, and that is set to reshape U.S. policy towards Israel in fundamental ways, explains a Politico piece on the plummeting numbers. On both the left and the right, young Americans are growing more skeptical of offering unconditional U.S. support to Israel, particularly as the death toll in Gaza rises and the possibility of Palestinian statehood dims. While a number of city councils around the country have taken stances in support of Palestine, lawmakers in Washington have largely remained committed to Israel. However, in recent months, an increasing number of politicians have attempted to adapt to the emerging consensus of their constituents. In other words, pandering. That's called pandering, because they're really not going to do anything. Good money talks and bullshit walks. You know how it is. In July, 1/4 of the U.S. Senate voted for a series of resolutions aimed at blocking arms sales to Israel. In recent weeks, a number of centrist Democrats previously backed by AIPAC have rejected further donations from the pro-Israel lobbying group. And as Kevin mentioned on Black Bear News, what was it, yesterday or maybe the day before? They're just going to get that money. That money's just going to get laundered. AIPAC's going to run it through something else, and then they'll get that money. And it's like, see, I'm not taking AIPAC money. Our choices at the local level matter in the global fight for justice, explained Portland City Councilor Candace Avalos. Silence and neutrality are not options in the face of oppression. The councilors say they will send their pledge to their respective congressional delegations, and they're calling on lawmakers in other cities to sign on as well. And finally, I think this is the one that's pretty long, from the BBC. U.S. axes website for reporting human rights abuses by U.S. armed foreign forces. How about that? What? The U.S. State Department has removed an online portal for reporting alleged human rights violations by foreign military units supplied with American weapons. The Human Rights Reporting Gateway, the HRG, acted as a formal tip line to the U.S. government. It was the only publicly accessible channel of its kind for organizations or individuals to inform it directly of potentially serious abuses by U.S. armed foreign forces. Its deletion has been condemned by human rights campaigners and by a senior congressional aide who drafted the law requiring it. The State Department insisted it was still abiding by the law. The portal was established in 2022 following pressure on successive administrations to abide by updated provisions of the Leahy law, named after former U.S. Senator Patrick Leahy. These require the government to facilitate receipt of information on alleged gross violations of human rights by military units supplied by Washington. Among the cases submitted via the HRG was the alleged excessive use of force by security forces during an anti-government protests in Colombia, while several cases were due to be submitted relating to U.S. armed units of the IDF. Of course, it comes full circle. In the occupied West Bank, according to Amnesty International, Tim Reiser, former senior aide to Senator Leahy, who wrote the 2011 amendment mandating information gathering, told the BBC the gateway's removal meant the State Department was clearly ignoring the law. Well, among other things that show that they're clearly ignoring the law. He added it was a further sign that the entire human rights architecture within the department was being rendered largely ineffective. The U.S. will find itself supporting foreign security forces that commit heinous crimes, even though nothing is done about it, said Mr. Reiser. As a result, there will be less incentive for foreign governments to bring people who commit such crimes to justice. In response, the U.S. State Department insisted it was continuing to receive reports regarding gross violations of human rights and was engaging with credible organizations on a full spectrum of human rights concerns. It said the department abides by its legal requirements. Aquaman has overseen a sweeping reorganization of the State Department involving widespread layoffs and eliminating some offices focused on human rights monitoring. How about that? The department this year released a slimmed-down annual human rights report, which critics said omitted alleged crimes by U.S. allies, but included those by foreign leaders the Trump administration opposes, of course. The department has previously said its restructure made it leaner and more efficient and followed President Trump's America First foreign policy, which sees some human rights promotion as ideologically driven. Charles Blaha, former director of the Office of Security and Human Rights at the State Department, said people in the field would now have no established channel for reporting gross violations of human rights by foreign security forces. The government's ability to deter abuses was severely weakened, said Mr. Blaha, who is now an advisor to the Washington-based think tank Democracy for the Arab World Now, or Dawn. BBC learned during the summer that the HRG site was earmarked for deletion. Its removal was highlighted by Dawn in August, but has not previously been acknowledged by the State Department. The BBC confirmed this week that officials phased out the reporting channel during the department's restructure. Screen grabs of the portal taken by the BBC before its deletion show it asked for information on U.S. armed foreign military units involved in alleged abuses, including extrajudicial killings, forced disappearances, torture, and rape. It required extensive details to ensure credible reporting, including unit names, identities of alleged perpetrators, specific locations, and dates. Blaha had already voiced frustration that despite the HRG passing its pilot phase, the Biden administration had not done enough to publicize it. How about that? Meaning the provision to facilitate receipt of information was still not being fully honored before the Trump administration deleted the channel entirely. The U.S. is the world's biggest contributor of military aid to foreign countries, supplying funding, equipment, training, and arms to more than 150 nations. Its vetting procedures to prevent arms going to units involved in breaches of international law have evolved over the years, with the 1997 legislation named after Senator Leahy being one of its major pillars. At the heart of the law is Congress sending a message to the administration that taxpayer funding cannot support human rights abuses abroad, said Amanda Klasing, who oversees government relations at Amnesty International USA. If I'm a member of Congress, my perspective is, quote, I want to protect my constituents and their taxpayer funding from going to torturers or people that kill their own citizens for protesting, she told the BBC. Klasing oversaw the compilation and submission of several reports to the Human Rights Reporting Gateway. These included allegations that American arms were used by Colombian security forces during mass anti-government protests in 2021, in which at least 47 people were killed and many wounded, according to the group. Amnesty. What the hell? Where'd I go? Amnesty says among the arms were U.S.-supplied high-capacity launchers for stun and smoke grenades. Klasing said she had also gathered evidence relating to the killing of 20 Palestinians during IDF raids in occupied East Jerusalem and the West Bank in October and November 2023. Amnesty was preparing to submit its report on these incidents to the HRG before its deletion. Human rights, schmuman rights, right? Finger man, finger man, finger man, finger man. Better late than never? Question mark? No, you're fine. Yeah. So let's make reporting human rights abuses even much more difficult. How about that? How you like that? How's everybody doing? Everybody good? Orange whip, orange whip. Thanks for holding it down on Rumble Go Start. My mouth is dry. Folks, coming up on Wednesday, October 29th at 8:30 p.m. a.m. I always say a.m. p.m. because I'm so used to the morning. 8:30 p.m. We will be providing the other side of the story in this saga between Heartlands Media and Chicago Corner. We'll have members of Chicago Corner, former members, and friends privy to the situation on to discuss and debunk all the misinformation that's been coming out from Heartlands Media regarding the court situation that's going on, legal situations and whatnot. That's going to be 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the ExtraBulla channels, YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. And again, I want to iterate, this is not an attack. This is just mainly a truth-finding situation, right? There's been a lot of lies been spread about Chicago Corner and the people who surround them, too. And I think, and none of the large channels in this space have wanted to have on anybody from Chicago Corner to tell their side of the story. So I'm going to do it. And we're doing it live. And I know there's something else going on that night. I'll tell you about that in just a second. But so if you can't attend it live, please watch the replay, because the information that we're going to be providing, some of it is pretty damning. When it comes to Hardlands Media, particularly towards Daniel Upker from there. So I don't know. I didn't know this until yesterday. Someone said that INN was doing a fundraiser for Justice for Aspen, and we want to provide that information for you too. So if you can't come to the live show for us, and if you're going to this, that's all well and good. Just watch the replay, please. Mostly the live show that we're doing, it's the live aspect is so that people in the audience can ask questions. You know, if they don't understand something, we'll provide, clarification for you and whatnot. So this is Justice for Aspen. This poor young lady, all the links are down below too. But more or less, basically, she was in Georgia. She was riding in a van with somebody who had drugs in the car. When the vehicle was pulled over, the driver was arrested, and she was arrested too, because in Georgia they have this fucked up law, like everybody in the car is guilty, right? So her information is down here below. We hope that you're able to support her if you can. If not, please share out the links, and maybe others can help out. They have a $12,500 goal they're trying to reach. They're about halfway there. I hate to see stuff like this. It's just terrible that people are just getting fucked over like this, and then they have to swim in these legal debts like this. So that's going to be Justice for Aspen, I believe, is on INN at 8 p.m. Eastern on their INN channel. So like I said, if you're going to be a part of that, that's great. Come watch the Chicago Corner show at your leisure there. But we really encourage you to come on while we're live so you can ask questions. We want everybody to be very clear about the facts, the actual truth of the matter too. So our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear Media, or Black Bear News, I should say, lost his house in the Eaton fire in L.A., and he's getting close to his goal. That's good, but he's homeless basically. He's got some place to stay, but it's when you lose your home like that, it's just devastating. Also, our buddy Chanda, who was battling cancer, was in remission, and now it's come back. I can feel for that. That happened to my dad. We thought it was gone, but then it came back. And as we know, medical bills are not cheap at all. So she needs, she's about halfway to her goal. So if you can help her out there, we appreciate it. And finally, our buddy Cowboy Kitty, his sister-in-law has been taken by ICE, and she needs funds for her legal services. So if you can help her out, like I said, all of these links are down below. Any help you can do, if you could throw in a couple bucks, that's great. If not, if you could share out the links, that would be appreciated too. So finally, some fun news. Because we need fun news at the end of this thing. That the AWS outage the other day caused some havoc with apps and computer programs and stuff like that. Apparently, it fucked with people's beds too, as AWS outage caused smart beds to overheat and get stuck upright. What? The Internet of Things. Amazon Web Services outage that affected apps and sites ranging from Reddit to Roblox was also caused some smart beds to overheat, and some said their mattresses were stuck in an inclined position. Users of 8 Sleep smart beds said the AWS outage on Monday caused the heat settings on their mattresses to stop responding, resulting in numerous complaints of beds getting too hot with no way to cool them down. Hey, that sounds like my bed, baby. It's always too hot. Sorry. Some users of the high-end 8-sleep $5,049 Pod 5 Ultra beds, which are adjustable to reduce snoring and back problems, said they were unable to take their mattresses out of an upright position. Matteo Francischetti, CEO of 8 Sleep, acknowledged the issues on social media and said the company is taking steps to ensure the incident is not repeated. Those of us with normal beds were unaffected. The AWS outage has impacted some of our users since last night, disrupting their sleep. Francischetti wrote on the tweeters, "That is not the experience we want to provide, and I want to apologize for it." He said the company is working on outage-proofing their technology. Full functionality was restored to all 8 Sleep mattresses by Monday night. The AWS Cloud Services global outage affected websites, apps, and businesses, including Venmo, Snapchat, Roku, Reddit, HBO Max, Canva, and many others. And finally, some RT trolling. I know you're in for that. What would the world like if Western leaders were a bit more honest? Have you ever wondered what the world would be like if Western leaders were just a bit more honest, or what might happen if they questioned or reflected upon their actions? Look no further. RT has imagined with a touch of AI what this alternate reality would look like. In a video created using AI-generated deepfakes, a host of former and current Western leaders, including European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, former U.S. Presidents W. Bush and Barack Obama, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy, and ex-British Prime Minister Boris Johnson speak about some of their most high-profile controversies. Claims by Bush and then Secretary of State Colin Powell about alleged Iraqi weapons of mass destruction infamously led to the 2003 U.S. invasion of the Middle Eastern nation, resulting in hundreds of thousands of deaths. No traces of any WMDs were ever found. What? You mean they lied about it? But let's watch this. You know all the fuckery.
Do you ever question yourself?
Why did I send Colin Powell to the UN with a weapon of mass deception in a vial when I knew Iraq had oil but no WMDs?
Did I help bomb Libya and kill Gaddafi to bury proof that he bankrolled my presidential campaign?
Did I promote COVID jabs because I set up a 35 billion euro cash injection through a secret deal with Pfizer?
Who was actually running the country when I could barely walk and remember my own name.
Whose businesses did I pay off when I told Ukrainians to keep fighting and dying when they had a peace deal on the table?
Why did I keep my Nobel Peace Prize even after bombing 7 countries during my presidency? Because, yes, I can.
The truth is that we never actually questioned any of this.
And we're only doing it now
because RT generated this video and and made us say so.
While RT has been asking such questions for 20 years.
We needed some fun stuff there. If only they actually did that. They would never do that. They would never do this. Oh, wait a minute. Was there more to this? Wait a minute. I think there was. I'm sorry. I think I hosed you. You got to watch the end of it.
My fellow RT, Zaz Dorovier.
He's drinking the yellow cake uranium. You know, when I heard it was yellow cake uranium, I was like, ooh, that sounds good. I love me some yellow cake. And then he said uranium, and I was like, okay. Dig this Coke, man. What's up, Bella? Good to see ya. Hope you're doing well, pal. I know AI is evil. It's probably going to take over the world. But might as well have a little fun with it while it's still benign, I guess. So, yeah, that's it. That's it for me. For today. Oh yeah, I forgot. I can't do this without this. We got the secret show coming up tomorrow night. That's Saturday, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. Halloween theme, since this will be the last secret show before Halloween, coming up next week. I know it's already here. That's just crazy talk. And don't forget, a week from tonight, I haven't made any of the graphics and stuff for it yet, but I'll start promoting it on Tuesday. Or maybe tomorrow night. We'll have we're gonna have our Halloween movie night. Last year we did Nosferatu, and it was fun. We had a few people out for that. We were just doing a little Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of thing going on with it, and it was so much fun. This year we're doing Night of the Living Dead. I'm probably not going to do as much commentary this time because there's actual, dialogue in the movie, since Nosferatu is a silent movie. But we'll still have some fun with it. Maybe I'll get some cast characters on there to help me out with it. We'll see how much fun that's going to be. So, guys, I appreciate all y'all for watching. If you're watching this later, I appreciate it. If you want to help us out here at the show, there's links down below. We have a Patreon. You could do $1 a month if you want to, get your name up in lights at the beginning of the show. And, we also have like CashApp and Venmo and stuff like that. Venmo when it's working, but if you can't, obviously times are tough. Everybody, there's so many other needy folks. Like I said, the folks down below need your help probably a lot more than I do. But, if you want to, float me a couple bucks, I'm not going to say no either. But otherwise, if you can share out the links, that helps us as well too. So, thanks everybody for watching this live. Thank you for watching this later on YouTube and Rumble and Facebook. I'll see you tomorrow night for the secret show. This show is going to be back on Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, 8 a.m. Pacific time, YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. We'll see you tomorrow night. Peace out, home slice. Word to your mama. What?
This is SETI Alpha 5. Woo!
Soon.